The Converted Man here. So, let's take a walk on this lovely beach. And while we're doing so, I'd like to, if we could, do a little bit of a thought experiment, enter into our imaginations, and pretend that you and I are two pieces of sand. You're one piece of sand, and I'm the other. And I say to you, well, look at how wondrous it is that the coastline is arranged in such a way that we would be on the beach rather than under the water. Well, if the tide came in just a little bit further, we would be swept out to sea. If that rock wasn't there, just so, then we would be washed away and we wouldn't be having this wonderful conversation. Now, you might say, well, that's an interesting observation, but if things were different, they would be different. This is the way things are. And I say, well, but still, just look at how intricate it is, these rocks way off in the distance. If they weren't just the way they were, if they were different at all, if that curve was different, if all of these things were different, then we wouldn't be here. Why, the odds against that must be astronomically huge. Isn't that amazing that yet, despite those odds, we are here? That can't just be by nature, because nature doesn't have to follow any rules that I'm aware of. So why is it that this is the way things are? And you might say, oh, maybe nature does follow rules. We don't know. We haven't explored all of it. We're just grains of sand. We don't have the ability to do that. And you're making an extrapolation based on nothing, based on ignorance. We just don't know enough to be able to say why we are here. Alright, so let us exit this thought experiment, this imagination, and let me talk to you a little bit about the so-called fine-tuning argument, which I've heard many, many times, and I've analyzed at least once. That argument is essentially this argument, slightly different, but it's basically the same thing. It's look at all of this complexity, look at how things are arranged just so, and that can't be by chance, it can't be by nature, therefore it must be by something else, in this case by design, and that can only be from a designer. One might as well say that reality requires a realtor. It really doesn't have much going for it. It tries to use inductive reasoning, but it's based on ignorance. We don't know why things are the way they are, but it seems to be that that's the way they are. Maybe they had no choice in the matter. Once they came into existence, they were going to do what they were going to do, and that's just the way it is. And I know that that might not be a satisfying explanation to some. It might lack something. But if that is the explanation, then that's what we have to go with. But right now, we don't know the explanation. We have a lot of theories, we have a lot of possibilities, we have a lot of hypotheses, and that's all great and wonderful, and I'm fascinated by all of those potential answers. The major issue that I, as a skeptic, faces when confronting somebody that has a particular belief, especially about a deity that's created all of this wonder, is that I can't get them to a point where they're even willing to potentially challenge that belief. More often than not, I've encountered people who will refuse to challenge that idea. No, this is the truth. This is what's real. This is how it is. And it can be no other way but this. And yet, if I did the same thing, if I said, well, there is no such thing as the supernatural, then they say, oh, you're closed-minded. Well, so are you. So now what do we do? How do we possibly move forward from this point if neither one of us is willing to challenge what we think is true. If I'm willing to challenge my beliefs, then it only seems right that you should be willing to challenge your beliefs. So, whenever I hear this fine-tuning argument, I recognize it as logically invalid, but I also recognize it as scientifically invalid. And I recognize it as really a giving into the pattern seeking that we humans do. We want to see patterns. We want to assume certain things about the way things work. And if we do that, we won't ever get to what the true answer is. We might get there by accident, sure, okay. But we won't know that it's the real answer unless we did the exploring. So in the scenario here, if we were grains of sand and we somehow got up and we explored the ocean and we explored how nature works and we came to a better understanding about it, we could come back to where we were. We could sit down again and we could say, okay, now we know that this ocean and this beach and those rocks really did come there by natural forces, that they really are there by accident, and that we are just two grains of sand in the midst of billions of other grains of sand, and we're really not as special as we were thinking a moment ago before we did that exploration. We're still unique, we're still interesting, yes, but we're common. And is that something that should make us feel bad or sad? I don't know. I mean, we can decide how to feel about that, can't we? But no matter what emotions we have about that, is it that we're going to reject reality because we don't like it? Or should we say, okay, hey, yeah, this is how things are? But with this particular analogy, and going back to the actual case where we have the universe and we have studied a lot about it, there is so much more to study. I mean, we're here on this planet. We have to have big, giant telescopes orbiting our planet, and maybe we're going to put bigger ones out orbiting other planets, or just in the middle of space out there somewhere, tethered to something so that it has even less things in its way. And as we do that, we will uncover more about this universe. And what's fascinating about that exploration to me is that we are learning more and more things. What, on the flip side, is true about any theology is it has to maintain its status quo. It has to continue to say that certain things about it are true. There are certain tenets that must remain true. Everything else can be dissolved away, but X, Y, and Z have to stay true. And if those things are failed, then our whole thing is worthless. And I've heard people say this about different theologies. So it is those three things can never ever change. No matter what we find out to be true, no matter what reality says to the contrary, those things have to stay true, even though they're not true. Even if we found ample evidence to show that they weren't true, that particular theology would still proclaim them as true. So that's really a big difference between science and different religions, different theologies, is science can change. Science can get new information, and theology can't. It cannot learn something new. It cannot uncover something new. It has to maintain certain key aspects of itself in order to stay alive, as it were. Maybe we are nothing more than just specks, and in a way we are. If we compare the human race, each of us individuals, even to each other, I am 1 in a trillion humans. That's nothing. That's insignificant, comparatively speaking, yet I still matter to those who know me. I still matter to myself. It doesn't really impact me to think about, yes, I am in a way insignificant, and in a way, I'm not that special, but I still am unique. There won't be a configuration of atoms like mine ever again. And that's kind of cool. No matter what happens in the future, this entity that I call myself will never again grace this planet. I think that's really wondrous. I think that that's awesome. But other people, that makes them feel uncomfortable, I guess. So, if we're going to talk about fine tuning, and I've seen a bunch of videos lately talking about fine tuning, we've got to realize, first and foremost, that it is an argument of ignorance. They do not have the data to support this. They don't. And I've asked them numerous times, I've asked people who have produced this to give me that data. And they'll say, oh, no, the numbers are there. No, the person just spouted the numbers as if the numbers are actual when those numbers don't have any meaning yet. No one, as far as I'm aware, has done any computer simulation to show all the variety of potential universes that could be formed if the variables were different, and then to go on to show within that computer simulation that life is only possible within this particular universe. Then you would have actual odds. But no one's done that, as far as I know. So if you have something that's done that, then let me know. But I don't think anyone has. I could be wrong. But that data just simply isn't present in every argumentation that I've seen so far. And until you have that, you don't even have the beginning of an argument because it's just ignorance. And what if we are just here by random chance? Why would that be so bad? Why would that be so horrible? If that is the truth, then that's the truth. And that's kind of cool. I mean, if that's the way things are, okay, cool, great. We won the cosmic lottery. What's so bad about that? Why is that such a horrible thing to contemplate? Doesn't bother me, but, that's kind of the problem, really, I guess, is if we're going to allow our emotions to inform what we believe, I think we've already lost the battle of intellect because our emotions are not logical. Our emotions are not based on rhyme and reason. So if I feel bad because I'm insignificant, I should recognize that, okay, that's just an emotion, but this is reality, and maybe I should figure out a way to accept reality and not to feel bad about it. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for listening. And as always, unless and until I have a better way to end these sort of videos, I have to continue to try to be creative.